Welcome to the debate. Imagine walking into your boss's office today, quitting on the spot, and just, not worrying about a single bill for the next 5 years.
Oh, man, the absolute dream, right?
Right. It's a concept called FU money. And there is this completely straightforward one-page mathematical formula that virtually guarantees an average person can achieve this level of absolute freedom.
Yeah, and here's the kicker. 90% of people who try to follow it will fail.
Exactly. Why? That is the specific question we are wrestling with today. We're looking at J.L. Collins' framework, the simple path to wealth.
Which is a fascinating piece of work.
It really is. And it actually started quite intimately as a series of letters the author wrote to his daughter, just trying to explain the nuts and bolts of how the game of money is actually played.
Yeah, he was just trying to distill it down.
Right. But it's incredibly potent. We are talking about a strategy that can generate generational wealth. So I'll lay my cards on the table right away.
Go for it.
I see this strict, mechanical adherence to a slow and boring approach.
Very slow.
Yeah, incredibly slow. But avoiding debt, utilizing index funds, and using the 4% rule, it is basically a mathematically infallible superpower that guarantees financial freedom.
And, I come at it from a completely different angle. I argue that any system boasting a 90% failure rate cannot meaningfully be called a simple path.
Okay, but
The failure isn't because the maths is wrong, right? It's because the framework drastically, almost fatally oversimplifies human psychology. It completely ignores the deeply ingrained evolutionary cycle of fear and greed.
I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective on why the mechanics matter more than the psychology, provided you truly understand those mechanics.
All right, I'm listening.
The core thesis of this framework is that wealth generation is fundamentally a test of patience, not a test of IQ or, market savvy. It outlines a very specific mechanical behavior.
Right, the step-by-step.
Exactly. First, you avoid consumer debt like a plague. You live simply. Then you mechanically invest 20 to 25% of a normal average salary into a broad total stock market index fund.
VTSAX specifically.
Right. Collins points directly to VTSAX. And you do this relentlessly. By doing this, the math of compound interest completely takes over. Being a master of your money simply requires letting that portfolio grow completely untouched.
Which sounds easy on paper.
But that simplicity isn't a flaw. It is the ultimate financial superpower because it completely removes the need for you to make brilliant decisions.
That's a compelling argument, sure, but have you considered the structural fragility of the human application here?
What do you mean?
Well, the math is beautifully simple on paper, yeah, but applying it over 3 or 4 decades is anything but simple. The framework openly acknowledges that the vast majority of people fail because they either get bored or worse, they give into absolute panic.
Which is a human error, not a system error.
But human beings are hardwired by evolution to be competitive, right? To react aggressively to threats, to take action to survive.
Sure, fight or flight.
Exactly. So to demand that an average person completely ignore financial news, suppress every visceral emotional reaction during a catastrophic economic crash, and just, do absolutely nothing for 30 years, that is a highly improbable behavioral standard.
It's difficult, I'll grant you that.
It demands a level of Zen-like detachment from your own survival resources that most people simply do not possess.
Well, let's dig into that idea of survival resources by looking at how this philosophy compares two hypothetical individuals, Raj and Aman. It's the perfect illustration of how this actually plays out in reality.
The classic tale of two earners.
Right. They are identical in terms of income. They both earn a completely average salary, but their practical application of that income creates entirely divergent realities.
Right, because of what they spend it on.
Exactly. Raj gets his paycheck and immediately buys a new car. He maxes out his credit cards on a new wardrobe and a bigger TV. His entire philosophy is immediate gratification.
Which is what society tells him to do.
True. But Aman, with the exact same resources, lives simply. He drives a reliable used car, avoids credit card minimums entirely, and he invests the difference. 10 years later, Raj has a mountain of bills and zero bank balance.
And Aman?
Aman, however, has accumulated what Collins quite provocatively calls FU money.
It is a very catchy term, I'll give it that.
It really is. But it's also a quantifiable mathematical state. It's defined as having enough savings to survive for 3 to 5 years without earning a single paycheck.
A huge safety net.
Right. Think about the profound utility of that for a second. If you're listening to this and you have a toxic boss or you are burning out, having FU money is the ultimate freedom to just walk away without a shred of fear.
Because you have the runway.
Exactly. Raj chose to be a slave to his money, while Amatan chose to be a master. The math allowed Amatan to buy his own freedom.
Look, I agree that the concept of FU money is conceptually elegant. Having a 3 to 5 year buffer sounds fantastic. We all want that.
Right.
But framing Raj's situation merely as a poor, logical choice, that completely ignores the psychological dependency that drives our behavior.
How so?
Well, people constantly say, I'll start saving when I make just a little bit more. And that day never comes. Why? Because stepping off the treadmill of immediate gratification is incredibly difficult when your entire livelihood, your social standing, and your daily dopamine hits are all tied up in this cycle of spending.
I mean, lifestyle creep is real.
It's completely real. We all know that feeling of getting a raise and immediately upgrading our lifestyle to match it. Rao Adahaz isn't just making a math error. He is trapped in a biological loop.
A biological loop?
Yes. When your brain is stressed by a demanding job, buying something new provides immediate relief. A totally abstract concept like a 3-year financial runway a decade in the future simply cannot compete with your brain's immediate biological demand for a dopamine hit today.
That's an interesting point, though. I would frame it differently. I don't think the philosophy ignores that dependency at all. In fact, I think it attacks it directly by fundamentally redefining what debt actually is.
Go on?
Collins argues something crucial. He says debt doesn't make you poor. It makes you dependent.
Okay, dependent.
Think about how profound that distinction is. Being poor is a lack of resources, but being dependent is a systemic vulnerability. I argue that recognizing this exact definition, realizing that every auto loan and every credit card balance is a binding contract trading your future freedom for a piece of plastic, that is the intellectual catalyst required to shift your mindset.
So you're saying awareness is the cure?
Yes. Once you intellectually grasp that you are actively choosing dependency over autonomy, the allure of the new car dissolves. The underlying math provides the clarity needed to override the dopamine.
I'm just not convinced by that line of reasoning, because intellectual clarity rarely overrides a biological imperative, especially under chronic stress.
But if you see the trap,
Recognizing you are dependent doesn't automatically grant you the emotional bandwidth to break the dependency. We are told Raj is a slave to his debt. Escaping servitude takes a lot more than just recognizing you are a servant.
well, sure, it takes action.
It requires overcoming immense structural and psychological barriers. Society tells us every single day that consumption equals success. The framework waves this away as just a matter of deciding to live simply, which drastically underestimates the behavioral friction involved.
And compound interest. Let's talk about the how for a second.
Okay, let's get into the mechanics.
We mentioned VTSAX earlier, a total stock market index fund. A lot of people try to pick individual winning stocks, right?
That requires massive intelligence and luck.
And usually ends badly.
Exactly.
But an index fund simply buys a tiny slice of every publicly traded company in America. As legendary investor John Bogle famously said, "Don't look for the needle in the haystack. Just buy the haystack."
Right, you are buying the entire market's average performance.
Exactly. And the beauty is in how it self-cleanses. If a company goes bankrupt, it drops out of the index. If a new, innovative company rises, it gets added. You don't have to do anything.
It's automatic.
Completely automatic. And when you combine that self-cleansing haystack with compound interest, it's virtually unstoppable.
If you wait long enough.
Let's break down exactly how compound interest functions. Because you're right, it's not intuitive to the human brain. Our brains think linearly, 1, 2, 3, 4. Compounding is exponential.
Right, it curves.
You earn interest on your original money, and then the next year you earn interest on your interest. It curves upward aggressively over time.
Yes, on a long enough timeline, the math is incredibly aggressive.
And to help investors grasp this timeline, Collins uses this great metaphor of planting a tree. Compound interest is like planting a tiny seed. The first year, it grows like maybe 1 inch.
And you look at it and think, this is totally useless.
Exactly. You think nothing is happening. The second year, it grows another inch. It is excruciatingly slow. But after 10 or 15 years of exponential growth, that tiny seed is a massive oak tree heavily laden with fruit.
But people get bored before the tree grows.
Exactly. People get bored and they uproot the plant to check the roots. They fail because they don't give the plant the time it mathematically requires.
Because they panic.
Right, but just as a botanist wouldn't panic and dig up a seed simply because it didn't bear fruit on day 2, an intellectually rigorous investor doesn't touch their total market fund just because it dipped for a year.
But a botanist is dealing with dirt, not their life savings.
The botanist understands the underlying biological mechanics of the seed. The investor must understand the underlying mathematical mechanics of capitalism. The market will fluctuate, absolutely, but the long-term trajectory of the total market, driven by human innovation, is upward.
So you're saying the 90% who fail just don't get it?
Those who fail simply lack this conceptual clarity. They mistake a weather event, a passing storm, for a permanent change in the climate.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. That is a beautiful, poetic analogy, but a tree doesn't have a ticker tape attached to its trunk, flashing bright red every time a leaf falls off.
Well,
a tree isn't broadcast on the 24-hour evening news with pundits screaming that the entire forest is burning to the ground.
Okay, that is a fair point about the media environment.
It's the reality environment. Let's talk about the ultimate promise of this framework, the 4% rule. The idea that if you accumulate a certain amount, you can withdraw 4% a year indefinitely.
Yes, it's the absolute core of the retirement phase. If you respect the 4% rule, it acts like an infinite money glitch.
Right. The theory is that the market's average return outpaces the 4% you pull out, even factoring in inflation. And it is historically robust. I'll admit it's designed to withstand massive historical shocks, even the Great Depression.
It is rock solid.
But let's look at the how and the why of human panic here. Let me walk you through a real-world scenario. Imagine our investor, Amin. He did everything right, he bought the haystack, he waited 30 years.
He's got his massive oak tree.
Right. He has accumulated $1 million, and he is relying on this 4% rule to feed his family. He plans to withdraw $40,000 this year.
A perfectly sound mathematical plan.
Until the market drops by 30% in a single month, which happens. Now, Aman's life savings, the money he traded his precious time on Earth to earn, evaporates from $1 million down to $700,000 in a matter of weeks.
It's a harsh drop.
The math says he still needs to pull out his $40,000 to buy groceries, pay his property taxes, and keep the lights on. Suddenly, he isn't withdrawing a safe 4%. He is withdrawing almost 6% of his remaining depleted portfolio.
It feels terrifying in the moment, yes.
It is terrifying. Psychologically, watching your money bleed out on a screen triggers a profound biological panic. Evolutionary psychology teaches us about loss aversion, right? We are hardwired to feel the pain of a loss roughly twice as acutely as the joy of a gain.
That's a well-documented cognitive bias, sure.
Our brains interpret a plunging portfolio as a direct threat to our family's survival. Sweaty palms, sleepless nights, the feeling that you have completely failed your dependents.
But the market always recovers.
The framework expects a man to peacefully rely on the statistics of the 1930s while his personal reality is collapsing. How can a strategy be considered a functional path if it requires you to actively suppress your fundamental survival instincts when your resources are threatened?
Because the strategy demands that you build a system that protects you from yourself. And this brings us to what I see as the most brilliant paradox of the entire philosophy.
A paradox?
Yes. Collins is a former Wall Street professional. He has been inside the machine. He has seen the smartest guys in the room. And his ultimate claim is that trying to control a stock market or trying to be a smart, active trader by analyzing trends and watching the news, actually destroys your wealth.
Right. He argues the more you fiddle with it, the more money you lose.
Exactly. He reveals that long-term, purely simple passive investors consistently beat the smart, highly educated active traders. Now, I fully embrace the friction you are pointing out.
The psychological friction.
Right. On the moment we are born, society teaches us that to win, you must be smart. You must outwork the competition. If there is a crisis, you must take control and take action to fix it.
Exactly. Action is our default response to danger.
Right. But this framework is asking individuals to adopt the absolute slowest, most boring, inactive approach imaginable. It is demanding that when your financial house appears to be on fire during a market crash, you must do absolutely nothing.
Which is agonizing.
I agree, it directly conflicts with our ingrained evolutionary wiring. But that paradox, that doing nothing beats acting smart, is precisely why the path works. The simplicity isn't just a nice feature of the system, simplicity is the superpower. And it is a superpower precisely because it bypasses human fallibility.
But how does it actually bypass it if, as we just established with Amin, you still have to physically sit there and experience the panic? The panic doesn't go away just because you know what an index fund is.
It bypasses the panic through automation and deliberate ignorance.
Ignorance?
Deliberate ignorance. The framework advises you to take that 20 to 25%, automate the transfer into the index fund so you never even see the money in your checking account, and then, crucially, never look at the portfolio. Delete the app from your phone. Stop watching financial news.
So bury your head in the sand.
By automating the investment and committing to extreme simplicity, the investor actively neuters their own destructive emotions. The author understands that our smart impulses, our desire to tinker and protect, are actually our biggest liability.
I mean, I see the logic.
The fear and greed cycle is a trap. The simple path works not because it requires superhuman emotional control in the middle of a crash, but because it builds a structural, automated wall between your money and your emotions.
A structural wall.
Yes. You don't have to be a Zen master during a 30% drop. You just have to do nothing. It requires one good decision made early on, setting up the automation, rather than 1,000 perfect decisions made under extreme pressure. That is the triumph of patience over intellect.
But doing nothing is an action. When every fiber of your being is screaming at you to do something, you are asking people to ignore the fire alarm.
If it's a false alarm, yes.
Look, the framework frames Amin's success around three things: avoiding the debt trap, continuously investing a portion of his salary no matter what, and maintaining absolute patience through market crashes.
The holy trinity of investing.
The arithmetic of that is flawless. I won't argue the math. If you do those three things, you will likely end up with significant life-changing wealth. But my contention remains that a 90% failure rate is catastrophic.
But
if an airplane crashed 90% of the time, we wouldn't say, well, the aerodynamics were mathematically sound, the pilot just panicked. We would redesign the interface of the airplane. We would acknowledge the human element.
okay, that's a fair analogy, but
The framework's reliance on absolute emotional detachment from one's life savings makes this strategy far more psychologically complex and, frankly, dangerous than the word simple implies.
I hear your structural critique, and, it's valid to question the interface, but we have to look at the alternative.
Which is?
If the simple path is too hard because of human psychology, what is the complex path? The complex path is what the 90% are currently doing right now.
True.
They are exhausting themselves, trying to time the market, drowning in auto loans and credit card minimums, keeping up with the Joneses, and ending up completely dependent on a paycheck until the day they die.
It is a grim reality for most.
The strict discipline of the 4% rule, the absolute rejection of consumer debt, and the patient holding of broad index funds provides a mathematically proven escape hatch from that exact exhaustion. It's an escape from financial dependency, and it offers the ultimate prize.
And on that specific point, the ultimate prize, I think we actually find significant convergence here.
Oh.
Yeah. When we look at the final philosophical takeaway of Collins' framework, it cuts through both the mathematical mechanics and the psychological barriers we've been debating. The philosophy ultimately concludes that money's highest utility is not the acquisition of material things,
No, definitely not.
It doesn't buy happiness. A new car doesn't make you fulfilled.
It buys choice.
Exactly. It buys choice and it buys time. The freedom to spend time with your family, the freedom to wake up and work for joy rather than out of necessity, or, the freedom to just sit and read a book.
The truest form of freedom.
Right? Both Ehleman's mechanical discipline and the immense emotional fortitude required to endure the market's terrifying swings are ultimately in service of that one singular goal.
It really is. The wealth itself isn't the goal. The wealth is simply the mechanism, the tool to purchase your own autonomy.
Exactly.
It's a fascinating intersection to explore, really, looking at behavioral economics through this dual lens. On one side, you have the infallible, sterile, beautiful math of compound interest, index funds, and withdrawal rates.
And on the other side?
On the other side, you have the messy, biological reality of human fear, loss aversion, and the deep desire for immediate relief in a stressful world.
It really demands that anyone attempting this path take a hard, honest look at their own wiring. You have to understand both the blueprint of the math and the builder, which is yourself.
Exactly. Listeners will have to explore the nuances of this material further to determine if they possess or if they can consciously cultivate the profound patience required to walk this simple path.
It's a journey, for sure.
Because, as we noted at the beginning, a blueprint can be mathematically perfect. It can be drawn on a single page showing you exactly how to build a financial fortress that will last for generations. But at the end of the day, it is still the human hands that have to lay the bricks day after day, year after year, and absolutely refuse to tear the walls down when the storms inevitably come.